that. So we have two panels this afternoon. The first one is going to be looking at young and novice drivers. And then the second one will be looking at medical fitness. So both of these topics are very much on the agenda in relation to the revision of the driving license directive. This was very much in mind when we were thinking about who to invite. So to introduce my panel, perhaps first myself, I'm Ellen Townsend, the Policy Director of the ETSC. So on my left, Jenny Carson, our PIN Program Manager. She'll be kicking us off in a moment. We have Jacqueline Lacroix from the German Road Safety Council, Claire Dupré, Head of the Road Safety Unit, DG Move, working very hard on the directive, well, three of them. Cristina Rodenas, who is a PIN panelist and also working in the Directorate for General for Traffic from Spain, and at the moment seconded to Brussels to work on the EU Spanish presidency, which officially launches 1st of July, but yeah, the work is already very much in progress. And last but certainly not least, Manuel Picardi from the European Driving Schools Association, also one of ETSC's members, with whom we've also been working together on the driving license directive. So we've got an hour or so until 4 o'clock to get into this topic. We thought we would like to start with a reminder of the main findings and recommendations from ETSC's PIN report on young drivers to set the scene. So, Jenny, over to you.
Thanks very much. I'm hoping some slides will appear in a moment. So the thinking was just to look at a bit of the data that we published in our PIN flash on young people. Yeah, you maybe want to move to the slide.
Sorry, that was not thought through. Apologies.
Yeah. Or you sit. Yeah.
Yeah. Or we just move. Look, Claire and Jacqueline and we can just move for a few moments.
Okay. Yes. It works.
So, yeah. So we just thought we'd kick off with a few slides, giving a bit of data from our PIN flash on young people. We have some copies here if anyone's interested. But we can see here. So we start with the scale of the problem. We found that 5,182 young people aged between the age of 15 and 30 were killed in the EU in 2019. And there on the right, you see the sort of 10-year, 2010 to 2019 trajectory in terms of road mortality. So that's road deaths per million population. And we use that instead of just pure road deaths to take account of the population. We're looking at a very small population here. So we can see that road mortality for young people has decreased at a faster rate than for all other ages. And this is at a time actually when young people's population went down by 9%, whereas the rest of the population went up by 4%. Another interesting aspect that we found when we looked at the data on young people is this issue of gender. You can see here the differences according to the road users between young men and young women killed. When it comes to car drivers, the proportions are fairly similar, but they are very different when you look at power two-wheelers and also car passengers. So 1 out of 4 killed young men are power two-wheeler riders, whereas 4% of women are power two-wheeler riders. When it comes to car passengers, 36% of the young women are killed as a car passenger, whereas 16% of men. So there's an important gender aspect to young people's road deaths as well. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Young, I'm busy here. Yeah, this is what I was talking about, the gender, the proportion of young men and young women killed as different road users, and you see there the differences, particularly for power two-wheelers and car passengers. So we also looked at road deaths for young people as a proportion of all deaths, and we found that overall a fifth, 18% of young people's road deaths are the result of a road collision. And you can see here those proportions according to the PIN countries. It's very important to remember that the smaller countries that you see here at the right of the graph obviously have small populations, and they can present some very stark percentages. Oh, is it changing?
Yeah.
Now it's not changing.
Oh, sorry.
Voila. So that's a bit of the data. There's obviously a lot more data in the report itself, but what can we do to address this issue, the numbers of young people who are killed on our roads? We go through a lot of them in our report. They're sort of summarised here in terms of driver training. We know that collisions occur most frequently just after young people have obtained their licence. They know how to drive a car. Do they know how to drive it safely? Perhaps there's a role here for things like hazard perception. Minimum age for obtaining a driving licence. We need to have an appropriate age for solo driving. The younger a person starts unrestricted solo driving, the more likely it is that they will have a fatal collision. So we need to make sure that that age for solo driving is the right one. Graduated driving licenses, we asked our PIN countries whether they had them. You can see a small table there. Not many of them have a full graduated license, but a lot of them have a probationary period for young people. And graduated driving licenses, we know, have been evaluated and work. Alcohol, drugs, distraction, these are all factors in collisions for all road drivers, but also young people, and especially young men are overrepresented in road deaths linked to drink driving. We know also their tolerance is less, so alcohol is very much still an important topic. Protective equipment, seatbelts, helmets. We have data in our report on the number of young people killed not wearing a seatbelt or helmet. These are still issues in PIN countries that need to be addressed. Obviously, safer vehicles are on their way to protect all vehicle occupants and could also play an important role in protecting young drivers. We have a large number of recommendations in our report, but here are just a few of them that we sort of picked out. I mentioned before, probationary licenses, stricter demerit point systems, graduated driving licenses, improved enforcement, obviously, not lowering the age for minimum driving, and zero tolerance for alcohol and drugs. So that's just a few. We have many more in our report, which is here if you would be wanted to read some more. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So if I could ask you to take your seats again. Don't lose your speaker. Right. So we've invited these 4 special guests because they all bring certain knowledge, experience, perspectives on young road user safety. We've asked them to give a very short introduction, so a few minutes, 3-4 minutes. And I'd like to start with Claire, please, if I may. We now have the driving license directive proposal, finally. Very tough discussions. So, how can it improve the safety of this particular road user group? What's in the proposal?
Maybe I start saying that since March we have been working quite intensely in the Council Working Party, and we had a very interesting debate at the last Transport Council where ministers had to give the la. So what is the direction we want to take with the directive and how much actually we want to make use of this directive to improve road safety. So it seems to be, an easy question to answer, but as usual, measures have cost, and in all the discussion we are having, we're trying to find the right balance, keeping very well in mind the objective, but then also trying to integrate this aspect. So why should we use the proposal and the occasion, the opportunity of this directive to do more? I would say, first of all, because we have a lot of good experience in the member states. You show it yourself on the screen. And I can also say that by learning by doing, I took my driving licenses, I was 7, so certainly not a very young person, but I was still a novice driver at that time. Experience before you really are, left on your own on the roads in the different streets of a city is quite crucial. So I think that in general terms, I think this directive aims at giving more resilience of the person who is getting not a toy, but a very powerful instrument of mobility, not powerful necessarily in the sense of the power of the vehicle itself, but an instrument that needs to be handled with care. And this is what the directive is about. Making sure that you understand a bit better the other situation, noting that you are not alone. So yes, vehicles are protecting inside the vehicle, but we are all responsible of each other. And so the moment in which this is better reflected, in the sense that we have more understanding of the needs of vulnerable road users, where we have accompanied driving scheme in place, where we make people more responsible during a probation period, well, all these are elements of the recipe we want to promote at European level.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll certainly be coming back to you, and I would also like to ask the participants, the people in the audience, to use this opportunity to think about questions as well for the discussion part. So next on your right, Christina from Spain. So from your perspective as a member state in the, as of officially 1st of July, the driving seat with the presidency, what positive experiences in handling this particular high-risk part of the population can you bring to the table?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. As we have already seen with your data, we have already experienced that statistics shows that the young people are the higher risk of when it comes to road accidents. So we have to be really concerned that the road accidents are the leading cause for the road death, people between 15 and 29 years old. And one of the most factors that contribute to this is the inexperienced drivers. Everybody wants to get the driving license and everybody wants to go outside and drive with your friends, but we have to be really careful because inexperience is one of the main reasons. So it's true that novice drivers are not in all sense aware of all potential risk that they could have or on the road or they have to face. Is it true that driving requires experience, knowledge, skills, and young people and novice drivers in general, they need to be aware of that. That's why the Commission has been working a lot with the member states for a long time to go through that problems and to tackle that with a couple of steps further that we had already, because we had the driving license directive that it was working. It was a long time ago that it was already out, 2006. And we have to go, as I said, a little bit beyond that. And with this couple of two instrumenting that they accompany driving, this system for the novice driving and go little by little, gain experience and how to drive in a safe, controlled environment could help a lot, because we have seen already that it was good results in a couple of member states they had already. And it makes easier for the driving in this safe environment after that. They get experience, the knowledge, the good driving, the habits. So we have to be really careful as well with the education, the training. But we have to be really careful as well with the awareness campaign and the conscience, and to be aware what is happening around. The other tool that the proposal has is the probationary period for new drivers, and how we can implement different rules, stricter rules, or different, how can I say, different options. It's like the zero tolerance, drink driving, alcohol, speeding. I mean, different kind of ways that we can control and prepare adequately to drive safely. Because, I mean, this is a crucial issue we have to tackle. We have to pay attention to all, I mean, stakeholders, parents, friends, and everyone. And we need to ensure that the young drivers have the necessary knowledge, experience to drive safely. And we need to implement effective measures, as I mentioned previously. And we know that some of them, they have been effective already in a couple of member states. So let's try and find the good solutions.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So you had a stricter penalty point system for novices in Spain.
Yeah.
Can you tell
Please.
us a little bit how this works and what the...
In our case, I mean, we had the penalty points from a long time ago already, because it was in 2015 we had the 10 years revision, and we get really good results. We get the figures in the road traffic accidents were down like at least 40%, and the serious injuries as well. And in the case of the novice driver, we have a different penalty points. In our system, we have 12 points. When you get your driver license, you only get 8. You need to get 2 years without any infringement of a serious fine to get the 12 points. And we have different, I mean, stricter rules for the alcohol drink driving. We used to have the speeding that we no longer have anymore. We have a different signal. We have the V13 that it's put the first year in your car.
Mm-hmm. On the back of the car.
Yeah.
Sticker. Mm.
And yeah, I mean, for the moment, it's working quite well, I could say.
Okay, thank you very much. So we might come back to some of those elements in a minute in the discussion. So this time I'm turning to Jacqueline and Manuel and you. So Germany has already had the experience of the accompanied driving and the zero BAC,
Yes.
with both
Yes.
very positive results.
Yes.
Could you,
Yes.
in
Yes.
a nutshell,
Yes.
please try to...
Well, indeed, we have this zero tolerance law since many years in Germany, and this has proven to have a great impact on the reduction of road traffic accidents and killed persons between 18 and 21. This is the age where the alcohol ban is in place for novice or young drivers. And this has proven to be an excellent measure to reduce one of the main, or I would say it's the second main cause of accidents among adult time among young drivers. For that, this was put in place, not for the general driving population, but for this specific group. Of course, this group sometimes blame and say, we are discriminated. We should have an alcohol ban for everybody. Yes, everybody should be banned to drive and drink. Therefore, the German Road Safety Council, a few years ago, has also taken the resolution to ask the government for a general alcohol ban in traffic. Yeah. We are still waiting for it, but you see, it came from the position of the young persons, because there we could really see how positive the impact was on the traffic, on the road safety situation. Yes, and looking at the directive, I must say that we in Germany, we are very happy about the elements which are there, including the alcohol ban for novice drivers, the probationary period, and the accompanied driving. When it comes to the probationary period, for example, I could say that, yes, we have also very good experiences with this in Germany, because people, when they are driving in this period, they know that they have to behave better, or that they have to really accept the rules and the laws, and because otherwise, if they misbehave, or if they even cause an accident, their period will be extended, yes, and they have to take part in specific training measures additionally, and they cost a lot of money, yes, so they are having time to learn about the, I would say, the common behavior in traffic towards other persons, and this is also one of the main targets of this directive, to have much more respect towards other road user groups, not only to see oneself behind the wheel, but also in connection with the environment, the infrastructure, and the other road users. Yes, and concerning the accompanied driving scheme, we are also very happy that the Commission is putting the frame for it for every country that has now the possibility to choose this option if they want, because it's not an I mean, the Commission is giving the platform for it, and the way how it is then formulated in detail is on the responsibility of the member states. But what we would have liked to see is more the access to the period of accompanied driving before 17 and not after 17, because we have seen in Germany that only 40% of those who have the possibility to use the accompanied driving period, only 40% are really using the whole period of these 12 months. Yes, because most of them, they start with the driving school after getting 17 years old, and then they need around 6-7 months to get the license. Yes, and then they start with this accompanying period, and so these are sometimes only 3-4 months, yes, and that's what we would like to see, because we see the positive effect of this accompanying driving, and the person who is assisting somebody, which well is not so much experienced, is to prolong as much as possible this driving experience period. And therefore, we are a little bit sad that it's 17 and not 16. But I will underline that the most important thing for us is still the fact that the solo driving starts from 18 on and not before. Yes.
Okay, so yeah,
Okay.
trying to keep that
Yeah.
balance of how to get them in, how to make the accompanied driving attractive. So we'll come back to that. introductory remark from Manuel. So I know that you could probably also talk for many hours on the new proposal and present us with all their ideas on how it could be better improved. But specifically looking at driver training and what has been added to the topics, and also what's missing.
Okay, it's a very good question because I'm used to repeat that unfortunately one of the missing words into the directive is training, because as you know the directive is focused on the exam, and this is directly linked to the students, because the 90% of the people that go to the driving school do it just for getting the license, so just focusing on passing the test, the theoretical and the practical test. And they don't want to make additional training for increase their skills and capacities. So we are happy with the work done by the Commission, because we think this is the right direction, and we have seen that the word training has been mentioned in a different annex and in the different parts, and so this is probably the first time that has been done, and we are very happy. And we think that also the part mentioned into the annex indicating the need for the drivers to not continue thinking to be the king, for the car drivers to be the king of the road. So to take in consideration more the vulnerable road users, it's a very important step made by the Commission. And in this way, we would like to recommend to the Commission, to the Parliament, to everybody, that probably it's arriving the time to certify something as awareness of the students. So it's good to have a test, it's good to evaluate the test, but we think that they have also to be evaluated regarding their awareness and their the conscious about the risk of the road. Linked especially to the vulnerable road users are today we have to share the road with the e-scooters, more bicycles, more pedestrians, and think that it's a good way. And we hope that in the next few years we can have more progress into the training systems as well. And the other things that is still missing, and definitely has not to be included into the directive, is the driving instructor regulation that is still missing. And this is not a topic of the directive, but would like to be just an idea for the next year to also add this system, because we have spoken about the accompanied driving system. It is good to have the framework for this. But one of the next steps should be this one. Have something as a EU regulation for this job.
Okay, thank you very much. So, yeah, we were also watching very intensively the Transport Council, listening to the ministers, giving their views on the proposal. And I'd like to focus, well, the next part of the discussion on the accompanied driving and the probationary period. So, first, Claire, could you explain exactly how that Article 14 is supposed to work? So the category B, accompanied driving.
Okay, so maybe I'll start saying that indeed we have not lowered the age. When we were preparing the revision, we discussed this, and this was not on the table. So how does it work? First of all, it does not cover only category B. It covers category B, but also novice driver willing to use trucks. And so the idea there is indeed, and sorry, Manuel, we often agree, but on this I would say, when you add such kind of provision, you add training. Maybe not directly with an article saying, and you have to do that. But you introduce a way in which you have a direct feedback loop. So to me, this is one of the measures we have been integrating in as regard training. So how does it work? So we looked at, let's say, the novice driver itself. We have been looking also at the person who sits next to this novice driver. We have tried to identify a number of conditions. We are discussing the same conditions in the council until now, soon also with the parliament. And there we try to limit the risk, let's say, and take the best advantage of it. So limit the risk in the sense that you want that the person who is actually the tutor there, give the good example. So you would avoid person with driver disqualification. You would avoid person who have no experience. We had suggested to integrate also an age-based criteria. So these are three, I think, main examples to give you a little bit an indication on where we are looking forward. Then indeed, well, only after 18, not 1 year of accompanied driving, but only after 18, then the person can indeed drive alone. I just want to add maybe one point, which is not in relation to category B driving licenses, but for those that would be using trucks. We are also having the discussion in relation to the additional criteria that would be imposed on the person that accompany the novice driver, and whether or not this person should have additional training requirements. Those who are fulfilling this legislation on the initial and periodical training. Because at the end of the day, there are also knowledge coming from there. And I would say, why did we do so? Because again, the discussion we are having in Council is to find the right balance, making sure that the provision can find its way out in real life, so that it becomes a little bit of a beneficial provision compared to today's situation. And so, while this scheme opens the way for truck drivers, because we see that a lot of young people are not getting into the profession, we also want that the moment in which they will really enter into the profession, they are also get used to all the environment that is more peculiar to commercial transport. Voilà. So it is a provision that we are discussing heavily in Council. I would say because despite being already in place in quite a lot of member states, everybody has his own recipe. Correct?
Yeah.
So the directive is a bit of a minimum, as usual. So we try to bring up the good practices, but we are also trying not to endanger, not putting at risk the good practices in place, but equally not creating too much obstacle.
So member states would have to offer
novice
drivers the possibility to do accompanied.
And that's the other thing that I forgot to mention. So it's not an optional. That becomes a provision, a requirement.
That you have to provide it.
That you have to provide it.
It's not that 100% of the population then has to do the
exactly.
accompanied driving.
So the obligation is on the authorities, and the possibility is then offered to novice drivers that would like to take advantage of it.
Okay, so going to the countries that have it, we have Germany here as an example.
Yeah.
What do you say to those ministers who say, oh no, it's far too complicated? What's the point? How are we going to manage? How do you sell accompanied driving, Jacqueline?
Well, of course you have to inform not only the government must be standing behind it, yes? And we introduced it in Germany by doing first pilot projects in several federal states. So there were 3 or 4, and in these cases, and this was around 2008 to 2010, we had first these pilots. And these pilots, they showed that the impact was a very positive one. So then the decision was made really at government level after a research evaluation. It was all based on research findings, yes. Then the government really decided to to open the possibility nationwide to do the accompanied driving scheme. And as you are mentioning it as an offer, you are not obliged to do it, but you can use this possibility, and this is a great one. And as I beforehand said, not everybody is taking really this option, but what this model has shown is that a reduction of those who are then driving solo after being accompanied for some months, 1 year maximum, that their involvement in accidents and their behavior is much less, and their behavior in traffic is much better. Yes, they are respecting more the rules and so on. So this is a positive effect. And from our side, from the German Road Safety Council, we were always supporting this scheme, and therefore we organized a big information campaign for young persons, and we still have a big website platform where young persons can get all the information they need to see how they have to deal with this option, what they have to do, what are the requisites which have to fulfill those persons who are accompanying, and so on. It gives you a lot of hints, and so it makes it a little bit more attractive. And you know, the main thing is information. If people don't know what options are in place, they cannot choose them. And so we see our role in informating the young community about this option.
Super.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Manuel, there are a number of criteria included in the proposal that these accompanying people have to fulfill, and Claire mentioned some of them. So minimum age, 25, no criminal record, no previous offenses. What do you think of those?
Very good job. No, it's done a very good job. Absolutely, we need this kind of framework. As usual, the things that we think should be necessary is to introduce something as just a short training for the accompanied people, because maybe the minimum requirement is to be 25 years old or 5 years experience, but maybe they never drive it before, after they get the license. And so just let understand how be relaxing with the students, what do they have to teach, how to do it. So this is the model that has been introduced in France, because France is one of the pioneers of the guide accompagné, accompanied driving since a long time. And French, no. And absolutely, it's a good idea. So get the parents or the people in charge to understand how to teach, how they can improve the training of the students. And definitely there is something as a peer training that they can do, because they can make a comparison with the work done by the professional driving instructors, and they together can go ahead in this direction.
Yeah, so also some connection then between those two.
And also sometimes one of the things with our experience that we have in the lay instruction is probably one of the things that we think should be mentioned is to indicate something as maybe the limited number of people that can be trained or they accompanied. Because sometimes we can open the door to make some black market for the people that do this as retired or something similar. So it's very important. Maybe three candidates per year or different something similar. Otherwise, in different countries, there is the risk to create a new black job.
Okay, before I come to you, Jacqueline, I'm just looking at you, the audience, the participants. This is your chance also to come up with a question for our esteemed panelists here. Before then I go on to the next topic. which is the probationary period and specifically alcohol, but not only. Yeah, Jacqueline.
But I just wanted to ask something about this accompanying person,
Yeah.
if you want to finalize with this topic,
Yeah.
because the question that came into my mind is what is about when you are driving as a novice driver, accompanied, yes, through the border of one country to the other, and the person who is accompanying maybe does not fulfill the criteria, but how is this checked then in another country? This is not very clear in the directive, I think. So because this is a huge responsibility. Yes?
Yeah, of course.
In Germany, I mean, the one has the driving license, but the solo driving could start at 18. But imagine somebody who's using this possibility with another young person, maybe drug trafficking, and going from one country to the other. Yes, what happens then?
Yeah, this is supposed to be one of the issues we are dealing with, because I mean, in Spain we don't have the accompanying system, so
Not yet.
So we are novice on that one, and we know that there are different systems that have been proved that it was really effective. And is it true that we need more information? I mean, in general, we need to clarify a lot of different points. As we see already, I mean, member states who had already this system, they have some doubts concerning the control or concerning which ones are the conditions to be fulfilled for because the idea, I mean, the initial idea that came to our mind, it's in the B license, you have like a tutor, and supposed to be, or in general, we always come to our minds that it's going to be either your parents, either any part of your family, and that they are already involved in your educational period and your educational training, and the only aim is to improve. I mean, that you improve your abilities and to get a better idea of what is going to happen when you are going to drive alone. But this, I mean, if we don't check the specific questions, we could have what Manuel has said, that maybe we have like some colleagues, the brothers and sisters going around with the friends of the rest. I mean, so we have to be really careful with the conditions. And we have to be really careful with the conditions. Yeah. We know that it's a good system, and it's proven to be effective, but we have to control, and we have to control through the border as well. This is the main one.
Can I just react?
Claire, and then...
Voilà, just quickly, just to say that indeed the devil lies in the detail. And so what can be an advantage can quickly turn into a non-intended situation. So this is indeed why we are discussing, maybe not questioning, but discussing how to make things clear. And that goes into the number of persons that can be qualified, so that indeed you don't have, your fake Facebook friend or TikTok friend or whatever else it is. So that's the first point. And second, well, we have a tool already that supports member states' cooperation when it comes to the driving license. To check, to be able to see, if the driving rights are there or not.
Resper, you mean?
And it is Resper. So maybe we don't use it enough. Maybe Resper is not good enough for enforcement. But first we discuss what we need, and then we make it happen. And so I'm sure we can make it happen.
Okay.
Okay, thanks very much. So, Kai Schulte, we've got... Heng, and let's start with Kai first.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Ellen. Kai Schulte, German Road Safety Council. I have two questions to Claire Desprez. One is we are talking about accompanied driving. So France is one example before you have the examination. Germany is an example after examination. So what is a clear definition from the Commission? Which kind of model you want to introduce after examination, before the examination? So the role of the accompanied person is very different. And the second question is, why do you have makes a decision that you're not discussing accompanied driving with 16 years? Because Germany wants to have this. We have, I think we have a lot of scientific evidence from Sweden that it can be working with a German model. So after examinations, they had a full education, and after passing the test, we want to introduce accompanied driving 16. Why you didn't discuss it?
Okay, so we're going to gather these together. Henk, and then Portugal and George, if yes, always.
Yeah, simple question. We have accompanied driving in the Netherlands as well. I am very much in favor of it. I think it's a very important measure. But in the Netherlands, there's quite a number of people who apply to such a driving license and get it. But the total distance traveled by those 17-year-olds is extremely low. So they have their driving license, they go out once or twice, or I don't know. I should know more about it, but I don't know the data.
Hopefully
but it's
more than
extremely low. So they're not driving as if their life depends on it. And their life depends on it.
Yeah.
So how to improve this? How to make it more popular? Could we extend the age of a normal driving license to 21? So that they all have to. Well, I don't know. Perhaps ideas from the panel.
Henk, could you just pass the mic in front? You didn't want the... Yeah.
It was the same thing, is that the point is not the time when you're accompanying driving, is the distance.
The distance, yeah.
Because if I spend 2 years without driving, am I able to drive after 2 years of accompanying driver?
Okay, thank you. So last question from George.
Okay, you listen to me. It is an issue of theory and practice, and the fact of two different Europes. And giving the example of Greece, where we are who have a very good record of transposing the rules, but there is no enforcement. We have a great point system with an empty database at the end of the day, so we don't implement. And okay.
Yeah.
Yes. However, on different occasions, there can be way outs, like monitoring and publishing the monitoring results of the enforcement of the point system, etc., where there will be at least a recommendation by the European Commission or any other technical and technological solutions which will allow the real implementation of what is in the law. And this makes the theory also practice where is not the case.
Okay, thank you. So perhaps first to Claire on this. I mean, you already started to answer to Jacqueline earlier on this 16. Do you want to comment on
I think
Kai's question?
we come with different perspective on this, to start with. So there are a few countries who would like to have much less, and there are others which have a conservative approach. And I think that's what I would like also to bring you. Besides the road safety arguments, and still, I'm maybe among those who would prefer 21st than 18, but okay, that's a personal consideration, so we keep it there. But there's also an internal market perspective. Please don't forget that. And so in as much as the directive leaves a lot of derogation for member states, I think there was the common agreement that you would not even lower this age below 17. Voilà. I think the primary aim of the directive is road safety. And then we should not, because of road safety, then avoid that people move freely. So that's the first point. The second, I think the distance, personally, I think you're absolutely right. But then I will turn the question to you, how would you measure it? Voilà.
Well, Austria has minimum 3,000 kilometers, and they have very good results.
But okay, I will not again come too personal, but maybe someone can say how my son would give notice of his 3,000 kilometers. Trusting is good. Trusting carefully is also good.
Yeah, so the checks and the balances. Any comments from Manuel from the Driving Schools Association on this? Or?
No, but definitely regarding then how we can measure this, definitely I guess that today we have different tools of certification that we can use it. So devices, we have some Portuguese experiment that they have done in the private sectors, matching the QR code in the car, in the driving instructor and the students. And so they, with a sample app, they can certify the timing spent on driving and the kilometers done during the training session. But this should be usefully used by the exam, during the exam, by the examiners, and also into the accompanying training. So that could work properly. And the other things regarding the age, I fully agree, because I represent the European Federation of Driving School, but I had my driving school where I try to spend my time. And I've noticed that the age of the people is completely different. So a few years ago, we had the people who was waiting in front of the door, of the entrance door, and right now, the training course with the biggest number of people is the one in the morning. So it's university students or part-time workers that they start to get in the license not when they are 18 years old, but 21, 24.
The demographics.
So driving license is something as a tool that can be useful for find a job. It's not the concept of freedom that we had in the past.
That's interesting. Okay, let's go to the next topic. I think it'll probably be only the second one. I'm really sorry. I think we were very ambitious about the topics that we would cover under this. And we know that driver training and how driving license directive can contribute to reducing road deaths amongst young people is just one small bit. And George, that links then into your enforcement point. So the proposal has proposed a probationary period with some options. Claire, what are the options?
Which one? The one that I
so
now?
Alcohol being the main one, but then there's another list as well.
Okay. I think I will tell you a little bit where we stand without going too much into the detail, but I think that the feedback that we got, even from those many member states having probationary period in place, is that we should be careful with subsidiarity issues. So what we are discussing right now is hopefully to keep this provision, and I count on those who are supporting the added value to make a little bit the lobby, also outside. That's always very useful. But the provision, as we are discussing right now, I think Christine was saying, is trying to give a little bit more leeway to member states. Which I don't think is a bad thing, but a little bit more of leeway so that you could work on both rules and section, or a combination of those. Voilà. I will not go much more into the detail because as we are discussing intensely, the discussions are not yet over. But indeed, we are still discussing issues related to the main drivers of crashes, including when it comes to the category of road users we have been discussing. Okay. And this is something we would support, because at the end of the day, it hopefully is used in the best way, also to take into account the situation and the feedback that we can have from the data at national level.
So yeah, from ETSC's ETSC's perspective, this for us is an absolute no-brainer. We would like to see zero BAC, same as Germany, German Road Safety Council, rather, for everybody. But in the Transport Council, there are a number of ministers who said, no, not for us. But we have 23 out of 27 member states with a 0 or close to 0.2 or 0.3, Spain, for novice drivers. There's been a Commission recommendation since 2001. So those last countries, what are you waiting for? We've got, not just in ETSC's PIN report on this, clear evidence showing that if you're young, you're less tolerant to alcohol. You underestimate the impact of the intoxication. So can we convince these last few member states? I'm not going to name them. We've got them on our website in the PIN report, and you can re-listen to the Transport Council. But for me, okay, we've also got other possible inclusions in the probationary period. So no nighttime driving, no peer passengers, restrictions in distance, but no alcohol. Why is it so difficult for these last remaining countries to understand? Is there anyone on this panel who can answer this question and speak freely on this topic? Manuel?
Okay, definitely I represent the private sector, so I'm not the institution, but from my side, from the driving school side, we can say that we have started some program during the training course, the theoretical courses, involving different stakeholders, try to create more awareness about the problem of alcohol, which are the consequences of the drivers and the offender drivers as well. And we have decided to involve different stakeholders, and for instance, the last one is wrong side of the road. This is a project where the students, they can see some interview by offender drivers and how the life changed as well for them. And with not bad consequence at all, but for the license, for the right of life, or for everything. And so we support the zero tolerance in the alcohol zero for everybody, especially for the novice drivers. But at the end, we need to convince the member states to apply this. Our aim is to create more awareness drivers, and we try to do our best in this manner. For instance, as the BLS, the Basic Life Support Project that we have done in the last years, try to increase the awareness of the risk of the drivers, as for the first aid maneuver. So we say it's not really interesting that the students, they understand how to answer to the test, but definitely we want to create some skilled drivers, novice drivers, that they will be able to make some intervention if necessary in the for maybe first aid situation, as the BLS certification and so on. So try to do something more concrete and less knowledge only.
Yeah, this, if I may, I totally agree with him, because sometimes we forget that our only main is reducing the road accidents, and there were no fatalities. So sometimes we are discussing if it's 16, 15, 14, because in my country it's like this, and this goes biased or not. But we need to get into everybody's mind from the beginning till the end. It doesn't matter if it's 75, 60, 80, and from 16, 15, or 18. It's really important that from the beginning they get the right message. And the right message is to get the information, the real information, the awareness campaign, the training, the risk, to be, the whole process, to realize what could happen if you do this or if not. And that you are aware that this could happen and you decided not to do it. Because as Yanis has said, that some member states, they have problems with enforcement. But sometimes we have rules and they don't get enforced. But if, as a citizens, you get the idea that this is not good because I don't want, we have already an awareness campaign with the high school we have these glasses, alcohol glasses that you put on, and you try to do a normal life with them, and you realize that you cannot do anything. And they really get quite shocked, the young people, because we started to get this information even in the disco and everything, that they are dancing, and then in the middle they get a big screen with big accidents because they call it it was just 5 minutes to go through in the car, and they just died. So it is true that we have to get the combination of all measures, the education, the training, the skills, the awareness of the risk, and then to keep the whole process till the end of the driving lives.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just only for the novice that it's good, and this is the point, but we have to consider that the times are changing and the systems are changing, and we are developing more and more IT systems as well, and more people get the training systems, and the more important it's the awareness from the whole system for the whole time. And then, of course, I mean, I don't think that any of the member states that you could have in your mind, that they don't have the legislation, they don't think exactly the same. But sometimes they get difficulties or how to implement. But of course, everybody is on the same line, that zero tolerance, not even for the novice, for everybody, because we know that this could save lives.
Absolutely, exactly. So we're nearly at the end. Well, we are at the end, because otherwise we're eating into the second panel, which is looking at the medical checks throughout the lifetime. So coming also up with what you just said there, Christina. Jacqueline and then Claire, if you can manage it in one sentence
yes,
each.
one sentence. I just want to mention concerning the zero tolerance. Yes, in Germany we have it now for more than 10 years in place, and the Federal Highway Research Institute BAST has done a re-evaluation. That means 10 years after the introduction of the measure, they have looked how long is the effect lasting in the young persons. And this was the very interesting result, to see that their attitude towards alcohol, because they learned it right from the start that alcohol and drinking and driving does not fit together, yes, that they remain with this attitude. So we have there a huge potential for saving lives, because people are driving with the right attitude towards alcohol.
And keeping it.
This is a lasting effect, yes. And this
okay,
is,
the one sentence.
Yeah,
Claire.
that was it.
Well, I'm happy to have this discussion.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to convince us. It was in our proposal. So
we want to try to keep it.
I see some attachés. I will not say where they are. I hope this can be brought back into the Council Working Party.
Yeah. So I'm knocking on doors as ETSC, as you know. So I'm going to pass now the floor to the second panel, but I did want to close by saying thank you very much. A round of applause to our panelists. We can't do it only with the driving license. It has to be part of the safe system. Over to Graziella Jost and the medical checks.
My name is Graziella Jost. I'm program director at ETSC, and I'll be sharing our last session for today on medical fitness to drive. Medical fitness to drive is a topic that is often overlooked in road safety debates, but a topic that is now at the center of the discussions in the Transport Council and in the Parliament, following the Commission proposal to revise the driving license directive published in March this year. In order to contribute to the debate with knowledge, we ETSC published a report in March 2021, so 2 years before the proposal was published, and some copies are also available for you on the table over there and online. My colleague Jenny will now present some of the findings of the PIN report and the main ETSC recommendations. Jenny, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm just going to give a few slides again, like I did with young people, with some of the findings from our report. We have some copies here with us today. So just one of the main things we found when we embarked on this report was actually the wide variety amongst the member states when it comes to medical fitness to drive. Here we asked a question about medical fitness to drive testing when you're obtaining a license or after obtaining a license. The directive as it stands doesn't mandate any testing other than an eyesight, so a sight test, sorry. So it's quite interesting to see that 9 member states choose a system of self-assessment, 12 member states have a doctor, 5 member states or 5 PIN countries had a specialist centre, and 3 have some other system. And then also after obtaining a license, there's a difference as well. So 13 member states have age-based testing, 10 have regular testing, not based on age, and 6 have no regular testing whatsoever. So really there is a very wide variety of how medical fitness to drive testing is happening across PIN countries. And one of the important messages we wanted to give with our report was this fine balance that medical fitness to drive sort of treads, which is about keeping somebody's quality of life and road safety risk. And that's a tightrope that people have to walk when they're dealing with this topic. So we also asked people how, we looked at how medical fitness to drive decisions are taking. And really the question to answer here is what are the functional consequences of an illness? How does an illness and the consequences of that illness affect somebody's ability to drive? And we included a lot of information in our report about how the people who make those decisions, how they make that decision about the consequences, how they are guided. We had some good examples from Ireland about the guidelines that they have there for their doctors. Also in Austria, we have some evaluated systems there. They brought in guidelines for their doctors and situations improved. So how the people who are taking these decisions, how they are guided and informed when making those decisions is also a really important topic. Lastly, like with young people, we also include a number of recommendations. Obviously, these predate the proposal. Oh, sorry. Predate the proposal. Hello? It's not working. Voilà. These recommendations predate the proposal for the revision of the directive, and some of the issues we can see in the proposal. And so we had some recommendations to the EU in terms of updating the minimum standards, also the alcohol dependency and whether those with alcohol dependency should be able to drive with an alcohol interlock, screening protocols, and as I mentioned, guidelines for those making the decisions. To national governments, we also recommend evidence-based screening tools and protocols to highlight the important role of general doctors, general practitioners, and again, this issue of alcohol dependency and those driving who have alcohol misuse issues. So those are some of the recommendations from our report.
Thank you very much, Jenny. I encourage you all to read the report in full. So this report and our discussion today, it's important to know, focuses exclusively on Group 1 drivers, so Category A, motorcycle, and Category B, driving license. So those licenses that require to drive a car, small van, or minivan that carry up to 8 passengers. So it's important to bear in mind that Group 2 drivers, professional drivers, have to follow different rules. So driving a vehicle is demanding. It requires, as Jenny said, individuals to be both mentally and physically fit. It is now well known that a number of medical conditions may affect an individual's fitness to drive, but data is actually lacking on the number of severe collisions to which a driver physical or mental conditions might have contributed. And that's because only few countries actually investigate fatal collisions and undertake post-mortem investigations. Finland does and published the data to inform better decision-making. So ESA, while you are getting ready to present a few slides, please, let me remind our audience that according to the EU definition of what is a road death, driver deaths from natural causes that occur while driving, as well as driver suicides, are not considered road deaths. So those deaths are therefore excluded from official statistics in other EU countries. An important element of medical fitness to drive remains invisible. The OTI database, on the contrary, so the database that ESA is working on, does include deaths from natural causes that occur while driving, because they are part of your investigation of all fatal collision, as well as driver suicides. So the data you represent, ESA, are quite unique. ESA, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for asking me to give a small presentation here. Yes, like Graziella said, we investigate all fatal road accidents in Finland with an in-depth investigation method. And yeah, we go wider than the official accident data. Natural causes and suicides are included. We have a quite good access to medical data during the investigation. 100% of autopsy rate for accident victims helps a lot in this data collection. And yeah, we have good access to post-mortem examination documents, for example. We can collect and use them for every victim. And from our data investigation, data collection, we can identify 3 most significant, most important groups of diseases that have been present in accidents. Cardiovascular diseases, especially for senior drivers, mental illnesses, and substance addictions. Those are 3 most important groups of diseases. Oh, sorry. This is how the diseases and medical condition problems plays a role in an accident according to our investigation method. It could play as a key risk factor, which means that the driver dies while driving due to heart attack or attack of disease, or he has a very strong epilepsy attack which stops the driving. And we can find that 16% of accidents during those 5 years were that kind of cases where the illness was a key risk factor or immediate risk factor. And then we have a lot of cases where the illness or medical problems has played a role as a background risk factor. So they were boosting the accident to happen together with other background risk factors. And we can find that kind of risks from every 3rd fatal accident. And if we put those together, the key or immediate risk factors where the driver practically died during driving, and those background risk factors, we have half of accidents. 49% of fatal accidents had some, the medical condition problems were at present in those 49% of accidents. Alcohol is the most typical substance in our DUI accidents. This black bar is the alcohol-only cases. Those are the most typical accidents or most typical drivers having only alcohol in blood. And then there are some alcohol combinations with other substances. And we made an approximation, a test in our DUI report during this spring, and it showed that approximately 65% of DUI drivers who were at fault in a fatal accident were substance addicts. Quite high percentage.
Thank you very much, Esa.
Thank you. I would have one.
Oh yeah, you have one more?
More. Yeah, if you may.
Sorry.
Yeah. So this medical condition problems, it's a thing of all driver age groups. Here I divided the bars to the drivers who had a medical condition problem as a background risk, and the gray ones are drivers who had a medical problem as an immediate or key risk factor. So those gray bar drivers, they practically died while driving. And there we can see that those cardiovascular diseases, they are more a thing of senior drivers, and then the younger and middle-aged driver, they have more mental illness and substance addiction problems. But the most important point is that there are a lot of drivers having medical problems in all age group. There is no one group which raises above the others. That was my last.
Thank you. Thank you. So that's indeed very important to see that it's across age that a driver can face a medical condition. Please take a seat, and may I invite the other speakers to join me on the stage. So yeah, I remember Esa, a few years ago you suggested this topic for a pin flash, in fact, because you said that the number of fatal collisions due to driver illness was a concern in Finland and was not going down. It's quite scary to see how many collisions are due to driver's condition in Finland. You say almost half of people killed had a medical condition. So
yeah, half of drivers at fault in a fatal motor vehicle accident.
Nuance to say. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm very pleased to have with me today Esa, that is working at the Finnish Crash Data Institute, OTI, a member of ETSC, and Esa is our PIN panelist for Finland. We have also Lars Ekman from the Swedish Transport Administration. STA is also one of the supporters of the PIN program, so thank you very much. Without you, we won't be able to do this work. Lars is also a member of a PIN steering group. And Kai Schulte from the German Road Safety Council, DVR, a colleague of Jacqueline, also a member of ETSC and a supporter of PIN. Kai is representing SIECA today. SIECA is the International Commission for Driver Testing, and Kai represents some of the findings from a 2020 SIECA report published on medical fitness to drive. And last but not least, Claire, whom you all know by now. Thank you very much. So assessing someone's fitness to drive is a difficult task and requires striving to find the right balance between safety and mobility that is acceptable to the society. One of the key actors in assessing drivers' fitness to drive are licensing authorities, and it must be a very difficult job. So Kai, could you please let us know what are the main findings and recommendations from that SIECA report on how to improve this Annex 3 in the directive on medical fitness to drive, on physical and mental fitness to drive, and also if you have any ideas on how to find this right balance between keeping people mobile, because it's a very tough decision to take someone's driving license away, but at the same time ensuring road safety.
Okay, thank you, Graciela. Yeah. So, okay, SIECA has improved an fitness to drive topical group in the year 2017 until 2019. So the report was from 2020. And so we made clear recommendations about Annex 3. So this means for the NX3, our main findings were that we need some new descriptions about visions, new descriptions about diabetes, new descriptions for alcohol use disorders, and new descriptions for neurodevelopment disorders. And there was a clear proposal what you can change. This was a report from 2020. So now SECA decided that we have a permanent fitness to drive group in SECA. And we were talking about mobility in the moment. So also from the proposal for the first directive, there is one article that especially old people have to renew their driving license with the age of 70. So we are discussing this very intensive, also in our group. But I say it's very, very difficult, and we are talking intensive. So we have not really. And we have one group where a scientific evidence is based for the age 18 until 24. So there is a clear mixture between the risk in use and the risk for no experience in driving. So this is a high-risk group.
So actually we should have medical checks for young people.
But sure, so as I said it also, from the medical side there is in Finland no database for one age. So for the young people we have it. We know from not experienced drivers that they are a high-risk group. Not so high if you have the cocktail, the dangerous cocktail, but they are also a high-risk group. But from the people who are old, we must differentiate. We have a biological age and we have a calendar age. So the calendar age now is in the directive, but the biological age is another one. So we cannot find it. So we have in mobility outside in traffic, the community is very heterogeneous. So we have people, they have a low competence to drive, somebody has a middle competence to drive, some have a high competence to drive, but we cannot say who is who. So we have not really a result to say at which calendar age is somebody not really in a health way to drive safe. We cannot say directly. So I think we need some more studies about this. I know from Switzerland they have this check, medical check, since a lot of years, and now they're thinking to cancel it because they have no results. So we must think really clear what's happened in this moment. Can we really describe a calendar age to say that somebody is not able to drive in a safe way? I think that older people have a lot of ways, based on their experience, to have new strategies to drive safe in another way.
They compensate, yeah?
They compensate. But we must discuss it as a starting point.
Thank you very much, Kay. Well, talking about this mandatory age-based medical testing, Sweden doesn't have one, and I believe you asked researchers to make a study whether you should introduce one. Could you please, Lars, tell us about the results of that study?
I'm not so familiar with this study in detail because I jumped into this panel very late. But our finding is that is not something that is, how should I say, a very effective or evidence-based track to do. I mean, my experience or our experience is virtually the same as you have in Finland. We have the in-depth investigations, and there we see the biggest problem from a medical point of view actually to be alcohol, or nowadays more and more drugs, which is, a huge, really huge problem. And in general, I think that we also need to have a more Vision Zero view on this, that, we cannot plan our traffic system given that road users are perfect. We are all bad or sick in some ways, and a good and a sound traffic system should incorporate people with some dysfunctions. Of course, there is borders where you could be driver or not, but in general, we don't see the age as a good thing. So I do agree with that. But we also know quite a lot of diagnosis where we really need I mean, we don't want to meet them in traffic. But then we have, I mean, we need to know what to do with these test results. I mean, we have the healthcare dilemma. If people don't dare to go to hospital or to seek medical care because they will take my driving license, and that's why the medical sector is so difficult to work at this respect. I mean, we think they are very, very unbrave. Just take away the license. You're obliged and everything. But they have other priorities to have the confidence and so on. So with this extremely vague answer here, I think there are several other important way to look at it. But alcohol, I think, it really should be treated as a medical issue, because those we see in our in-depth investigations, they don't have just taken a glass too much. They are alcohol dependent. And so I think that is a very important thing. And that's where we have done quite a lot with the Alkolocker program and things like that. And so I think that's an area where we actually can do something now, where we have evidence. The other is a very, very tricky dilemma at what age or what stage of disease you should take away the license. And where we have had experience in Sweden, then we have had medical specialized centers to test whether they are able. Because there are lots of myths that, you're old, or your sight is not really good, or your balance is not good, then you should be taken away. But as you mentioned here, many people compensate perfectly with that. Bad night vision, I don't drive during night, or things like that. So I think it's a rather complicated area, and we need quite a lot of knowledge. But primarily, I think we need to know what to do with our results.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Lars. Now, Claire, so the EU has been ahead globally in trying to provide a framework for medical fitness to drive. It's a difficult topic, and this is where I think the EU has added value in providing maybe for a screening protocol, for additional information to health professionals on how to do this well. It's true that you heard from Jenny that it's a patchwork, but at least the 2006 directive is trying to be a catalyst, and in particular this Annex 3. But since then, knowledge has evolved, and this is why you're working on a proposal. You've been working on a proposal for a revision. So could you please talk us through the main changes in the driving license directive regarding medical fitness to drive?
I need to do something else before, if you don't mind. So, first of all, the directive we have in place is an age-based directive, first. Second, even those member states who have not entirely transposed all the provision of the existing directive will have to do so by 2033. And this means, 33 if I'm not mistaken. So this means in practice that, I told you before that I had taken not elderly age, but still, quite a mature age, my driving licenses. I was in Belgium, I took in Belgium. I can show it to you. It's a driving license that allows me to drive until I die. Mm-hmm. But until 2033, Belgium, like other member states who have not entirely transposed the directive, will have to do so. And so the existing directive foresees already renewal of the driving license.
But the medical checks are optional.
No, but wait, because I heard in the panel that, we are suddenly introducing requirements for elderly people. No, renewal of the driving licenses is scheduled, foreseen, in place in the current directive.
Yeah, renewal is one thing, but medical checks is different. It's a different thing.
Still, the renewal is there. So yes. This directive, please, that's my point first, this directive does not aim to take away driving licenses from drivers. That has never been the point. Never. Okay? Why did we start looking into ways in which to better understand the medical condition of people? It's because in the discussion we have had with you, with the national administration, we try to find ways in which we could increase the knowledge, the awareness of cases where we need to pay more attention to, and the current directive foreseen that this is feasible as of the age of 50, not 70, not 75, not 80, 50. And so we try to encapsulate an alternative solution where, building again on the existing practices in some member states, we offer to rely on a self-assessment as the new kit on the block to check, to be able to understand. And there, after a certain period, allowing those member states who are already performing this, because here in the panel, we have not brought people who are, or member states from those administrations which are already using medical checks, to continue their practice, and noting that you might, after a certain period of time, and don't forget that in this proposal, we also include this lifelong training principle there. We said, well, we might need at some stage to get in touch with a person again. And so that might be for medical reasons, that might be a refresh course, or that might be any other measure that the member states might consider useful. And guess what? This is exactly the same provision that we have in the directive currently. Exactly the same.
Well, it used to be may, and now it shall. So there is a change.
After a certain age, correct. After a certain age, correct.
After 70, yeah.
Does not mean when I'm turning 50 today or when I'm turning 70 either. But I won't get into all this discussion. I think what the aim was to help administration to use not only tools that they had in place, but also additional elements that would help to better target the small available resources they have. Voilà. Then I understand that in certain member states, maybe the figures are not getting exactly into the same direction. We are discussing this again in a constructive way, I hope, in Council, because again, the point with this directive is not to prevent mobility. I'm not coming from a DG which prevents mobility. I'm coming from a DG who tries to support, and I really believe to support as inclusive as possible mobility, including for elderly people. But general terms, I can also say, having had not, I had a dad who died from other diseases, but used to drink a lot. That did not cause accident to others, but still, he was on the road, and I had no means to prevent that. So I think that certain member states who have other ways in which they can try to get into better understanding the situation, and excellent what you are doing in terms of post-crash investigation. But if we can do it before, even better.
So you're speaking, for example, about the new things in the proposal, the safe assessment of drivers. So how will this work, and what needs to be done to work it well?
Alors, as I said, we have some experience on the table. I think we can rely also on the Swedish example, but there are certain countries already using it. Now, some concern that we have from certain member states is what will we do with a lot of feedback we get? How do we make a template, because at the end of the day it will be a template to be filled in, and how do we know that people will fill in the information in a responsible manner?
Yeah.
Voilà, these are all questions we are currently discussing. The thing that I want to say is, I think from the Commission side, we certainly do not want to create obstacles to the practices already in place in the member states where this is producing good outcome. There's no way, there's no benefit we would have. Huh? So this, I think, is getting a bit better reflecting into the negotiation in Council. But equally, I would invite those member states who have nothing in place to try to answer last question. How do you get to know if you don't have any ways to get in touch with a person? And I think, sorry, yeah, but we are getting to mobile driving licenses. Where will the authorities get in touch with a person in the future? Never. So I bring more question. Maybe I don't give the answer, but
yes, last please. Yeah.
Yeah, if I give a negative view on the difficulties with to restrict it, I think in an area of alcoholism, I think at least in Sweden there is no opposition whatsoever. I mean, there is a very consensus about against drunk driving, and that we have alcohol locker in our fleets, in all our fleets, and so on, and that will be rather natural part, and also from a HR perspective in a company, it's very good to know when people to know early if people have problems with alcohol. So not wait until we can take the autopsy from them, but rather realizing when some people have problems to drive on their company cars on Mondays, whatever, then you could have put them in some treatment for that. So I think when it comes to alcohol, I think there is for once, relatively easy to be a bit tough, because people, or the society, at least in Sweden, people are, very against drunk driving. So it's even people who like to drink alcohol. So if something prevents them from doing it while driving, so it's I think that's a positive way.
And something that we have welcomed is that the driving license proposal from the Commission is changing the rules now for alcohol interlock program. Now, before the rule says that you can give a driving license to a person that was alcohol dependent, and now it will if it's with an alcohol interlock. So, for example, Sweden used to have alcohol dependent people in their program. They had to stop it because of the driving license. Now they will be able to do it again, so that's a very welcome move. Because as you say, people can drink and drive before a certain age. It's across the age, and it's a way, the alcohol interlock tool, to find those people before they get into your statistics.
And this is not just a technical one. We also have medical checks. If you're on an alcohol program, you not only have the technical device, you will also be checked in between or during the program. So
exactly. So one of the additional recommendation to just having alcohol-dependent people in the alcohol interlock program is actually to have medical supervision, because if you just have the dry installation, it's maybe not enough. So that's a call for us to the European Commission and to the Transport Council and the European Parliament to add medical supervision, because it's very important to support those people, not just with the alcohol interlock program. But so prepare your question. I'm going to turn to you, audience. Just one last question. So in a way, if we exclude natural deaths from road safety statistics, and for good reasons probably, but maybe we could have them separate. If we don't collect them, then there is no problem. What do you do with the results from your accident investigation SI in Finland, and how does data serves policies in Finland and maybe also for the EU? What can be learned from your data?
Well,
if you speak, maybe.
Fitness to drive issues, they have had a lot of attention in Finland, I would say, during last 10-15 years. Like 15 years ago, practically nobody talked about fitness to drive issue. There were other risks that were valid in accidents, but now fitness of driving issues, they are in every paper, in every strategy. Police has fitness to drive issues in their own programs, and so and we have recognized these most significant groups of diseases which should be controlled during the medical checks. And we also propose, and we have quite good agreement with medical professionals that based on our data and based on other things, the medical assessment and the fitness assessment of drivers, it should be lifelong, it should be continuous.
By your GP, your family doctor probably, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Every time when you meet the doctor should assess and consider the situation also from a driving license point of view. And then you need good professional skills for doctors. Our data serve very much on that, on doctor education. We have courses for on medical, on traffic medicine for doctors. There are associations who teach doctors. And well, there are a few examples how our data serve in Finland.
Thank you. Okay, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, was one aspect which I would to add for alcohol interlock. It's so the proposal says something about that you can use alcohol interlock systems to prevent accidents with alcohol. Fantastic. What I want to add in this moment is not only alcohol systems, alcohol interlock programs. I think like in Sweden. So this psychological support, not the people to bring them in a situation that they are not possible to drive with the car. So to bring them in a situation to think about alcohol and traffic, and that this is not a part which close together. So range it more, not alcohol interlock systems, alcohol interlock programs.
Yep.
And a second aspect from doctors. I think we should also in the European Union think about how to give normal doctors more ideas to influence people in a fantastic way when they see there are some problems with fitness to drive. Because these are very, very important person where the clients, I say clients at the moment, they trust them. So we must give them good ideas, strange possibilities to find the right way to talk to their clients. I think this would be a fantastic way.
I very much agree. Honestly, I very much agree. I think that there's plenty of things we could do in that respect. So I don't think that the directive is per se the end. Many more things can happen, and we certainly need to bring much closer this health sector to our own sector, to the benefit of both, actually, because you know, getting a better knowledge on data can also give quite a lot of information to the community. So it's not something that we leave aside. I very much hope that once we are a little bit in safer water with the directive, we can continue working with the experts in the member states and making sure that we get this other community closer to us.
And maybe prepare guidelines for them.
I mean, also making them understand each other, starting with that. So at least, if I look at how we organize in the Commission, we certainly have margin of maneuver to improve things.
Thank you very much. We're going to now take questions from you. You've been very patient. First Jacqueline, then Enk.
Yes. As I understood you well, Claire, what you want is with this age-related self-assessment or screening, you want to have a kind of prediction who could maybe be due to medical or physical problems cause an accident. But I can tell you, the point is, and the data has shown, once somebody is dead and then the in-depth investigation is done, you can realize, oh, it was a heart attack or it was a stroke, yes. But beforehand, the prediction is rather impossible. I know in my personal surrounding from persons who were completely in a good motion in the morning, and in the afternoon they got a small stroke, and this person has done an accident.
Okay, but the situation is not black and white either. Yeah. Huh? There are plenty of conditions which affect the driving. I have in mind a friend, a close friend. We are meeting very often. But he realized through a number of checks he had to do for the driving license that he was under a certain condition. Otherwise, he did not know, and so he would not pay attention. But I also want to add another thing, because you kind of hint that the Commission want to track everyone. No, that is not the purpose, okay? But it is to give the authorities a little bit more the possibility of better accompanying these driving rights.
What Jacqueline is trying to say is that there is no evidence that those member states that have age-based mandatory medical checks, we don't see any evidence in the statistics that those countries are better.
Look at the fantastic evaluation done by the Swiss Accident Prevention Organization. They had this in place, the screening, the medical screening, since the end of the 70s. And now they have done a real in-depth evaluation, and this evaluation has shown that the effect of a regular screening from 70 years on has brought nothing for the safety.
We are not talking 70, sorry, again, we are not talking 70. But maybe we can give the floor to colleagues who have other system in place.
Christina? Yes.
Thank you. I have to say that we are one of the member states who had the medical checks since with the transposition of the directive. And I was saying before that we have to go through the whole process. So we are not talking about a certain age, but we are checking the conditions. And checking the conditions, in general, I don't know anybody who can say that it's exactly the same as it was last year. It doesn't matter the age. Because we suffer from things. It doesn't matter. And we are not talking about that from one second to another one, I'm going to suffer a heart attack. Because this we cannot prevent. But, people who have suffered, for example, an ictus, they can get recovered totally, but they have reduced their condition. And if they don't get any medical check, or if they don't get the information to the driver license, they are going to be driving with the minor conditions to get fit. So, and I can say that I've been working in the practical area for driving license. I was the person who gave the driver license. I was checking the medical centers, and I was reducing the condition for the people. And of course, I can say that reducing most of the conditions avoid lots and lots of accidents, because we know more. In general, we know everyone who has either the age, either a father, either a friend. We know that some conditions in general could affect the driving conditions. And it doesn't mean that they cannot drive. Of course, we want them to drive, and we want to go through the mobility, but in the fitness condition. So maybe they cannot drive during the night, maybe they cannot drive more than 45 kilometers per hour, they cannot drive. We in Spain, we are really we have a really good system in providing and helping people with disability the way of driving, and helping them to improve the system in the car, and making them different exams, a technical one and a practical one, and they can, to improve their lives, and they can drive without legs, without hands, and they can, we are not avoiding people from the mobility. We are helping them to drive in the best condition. So,
yeah, you're mentioning those conditional licenses. Yeah, it's true. In the report, you will see the list, and we actually recommend member states to collect data because most of the member states don't actually know how many conditional licenses they have. Maybe Finland does. And it's true. It's not black and white. It's not like you can drive, you cannot drive. You could allow people to drive limited around your house or not at night. To allow them at a slight risk to continue driving under certain circumstances. Yeah, Esa, you want to react?
I wanted to add on latest comments that well, we have a age-based screening in Finland, starting from 70 years and then after 5 years. And like we saw from our data, there were still drivers over 70 years who were causing a fatal road accident, and they had medical condition problems.
Yeah.
But what would the situation be if there wasn't any screening? How high the bar would have been? But net has still 2 big holes there. There are still drivers who pass the net and pass the screening, and they're still driving with medical problems. But then we were talking mostly on cardiovascular diseases when we were talking about older drivers.
Sorry about the mic problem. Is there something technicians can do?
No, I can yell.
Can you hear Esa?
Yeah. But then the younger drivers, they had different types of medical problems. And as an example from Finland, young driver obtaining a driving license, he doesn't have to go through the medical check anymore. It's their own guarantee that I'm suitable to drive. When young men go to military service in Finland, it's quite high percentage of youngs who are dropped immediately due to medical reasons, mostly due to mental illnesses. It's like 20% or something youngs that are not capable to continue or even to start military service. If those youngs continue driving, when is the first moment when they meet a doctor who assesses their driving fitness? I don't know. That's why I think, and we think at OTI, that the medical screening should be continuous since the young ages, and the capability to drive, the fitness to drive should be assessed all the time during the lifespan. Not from the 70 years.
At ETSC as well, and probably by your family doctor who knows you best, and someone that you only see 20 minutes every 5-10 years, who doesn't know you, who doesn't probably have your medical records either. Henk, you were next.
Yes, Henk Stipdonk, the Netherlands, co-chair of the PIN panel. Interesting discussion. I'm not going to say anything about medical fitness to drive because everything is already said, and much more is to be said, but there's no time. So I would like to propose something a bit spicy to you about alcohol locks. In the Netherlands we had an alcohol lock. It was very successful, and then a judge decided that it's an improportionate measure because one guy got banned from his job because he had a job where he had to drive a car, and he said, well, I'm only drinking and driving in my private car and not in my company car, so it's unfair. And the judge agreed, so now we have no alcohol locks in the Netherlands anymore, which is a shame, because I don't have to explain this. But I was thinking, why don't we decide to apply this alcohol lock to the car? Of course, that's not the first thing you think of, because when you apply it to the car, someone else who's driving the car also has to blow the thing, I don't know, you know. So, and then we want to prevent this drinking driver to drive in another car. But then still, today in the Netherlands, we don't have alcohol locks. So suppose we apply it to the car. Yes, indeed, if you sell the car, the new owner has a problem. So this car is becoming a nuisance for the owner. And he will learn better than to do this again, and his friends will know. So that's my question. What do you think of this? I think that Lars has an idea.
Yeah, actually, that was my last point on my list here. That was actually because I see some hope in the new car development, because a colleague of mine working at the Euro NCAP steering group, they say that more and more things will be incorporated with the car. And I mean, because we have the difficulties if we not only have alcohol problem, but also drugs. But the way these systems work is actually when your behavior or acting is signalized that you're under the influence or not suitable for driving, then they could warn. And they are so much more convenient, these systems, when they're incorporated by the car manufacturers. I've been all the way from the beginning where we had very, very old alcohol locker, and they didn't work when it was cold, as in Sweden. It took ages to get the car started. But when the car company incorporated, you have the device in your pocket, inside it's warm, it doesn't bother you at all. So I think many people should not think it's a real problem that this car is not being driven by a drunk person. But we have the assumption with the old system, which was very annoying, that you need to have these plastic gadgets to use. In the modern one, you don't use that. It's monitor in a good way. So I think that preparing for this is something good, because I think the technology will develop quite a lot.
Claire, you wanted to respond?
Yeah.
Then Essa and Kay.
I want to make a short comment for the Netherlands. This was a fantastic example that you need an alcohol interlock program, because this guy has really a problem. I use a private car, I will drive with alcohol. In my company car, I drive not with the alcohol, and the judge should also participate in this program.
Okay, from the vehicle side, there are indeed improvement. So on the one hand, now legislation has come into force when it comes to not having all new type of vehicle fully equipped, but it's a little bit like, I make the analogy because I think last time I was here we were discussing alternative fuel infrastructure. So it's a bit the same when it comes to equipping the buildings with what you need to then put.
You have a plug.
Put the charger. So that's exactly the same. So now what is from the inbuilt system in the vehicle will be there. So that's when it comes to interlock. Of course, you have to still equip the vehicle, but at least this is made more easy. And on the other hand, true, colleagues from DG GROW have been working, I'm sure, at UNEC level, but also with the member states to provide a new legal measures which will allow to monitor a bit the distraction in the vehicle. And the distraction for me, and when you drive or how you handle the driving is the symptom, no? So you would be able to understand a little bit better how to do. But it's true that nonetheless this information, because we don't want to track people, goes inside the vehicle. So there's no link with either the medical sector or the authorities, because that would probably be another type of society.
Essa?
Yes, I like to drop numbers from our data. For alcolock, we are very much for alcolock. We have proposed alcolock programs and the wider use of alcolocks in Finland. We have sent letters to ministries and so on. But in reality, we have a quite old car fleet in Finland. The average age of cars is 12 years or something in Finland that are on the roads. Drivers at fault in a fatal motor vehicle accident, they drive on average 14 years old cars, and DUI drivers at fault in a fatal motor vehicle accident, they drive at 15 years old cars on average. So they are 20 years old cars, 25 years old cars. So if you buy a car now, it will be in transportation on 2043, I would say, or 45 or something. So we have to discuss about new cars with alcolocks already installed. But if we want a faster solution, we have to talk also about installing alcolocks on older cars.
Well, thank you very much. Sorry, we are running out of time. I want to thank, Jesus, you wanted to ask your question. Is it burning? Yeah? Okay, that's going to be the last question. Sorry. And then I'm going to close the conference.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jesus Monclús, and I work in Mafre Foundation in Spain. My question is to ESA, related to your striking and shocking, at least for me, data. So would it be correct to say that if there were no medical conditions, between 16% and 49% of all crashes could be prevented? Then I have do you follow me? 16 was the main contributory factor and 33% another background factor. And I guess that the main question, the main problem is to put a percentage, a probability. And in case of some sudden conditions like a cardiac arrest, it's very difficult actually to identify that. So that's why, you know, my sentence was if there were no. And then the last question is whether you have statistics on types of vehicles. You show the percentages by age, but is it the situation different in professional drivers?
Yeah, we have of course, information on types of vehicles and also the reason of travel. And in most cases, the question is car or van drivers who were on free time travel. And yeah, ideally thinking, if no, then no 16% of accidents. Of those background risk cases, 33%. There were also other background risks at present. So we don't really know without really in-depth investigation and reading of those cases what would happen without this medical condition. That was one risk among several others. There may have been vehicle risk, road risks, and so on. But those 16%, they were, I would say, kind of pure illness attacks. So without those, probably nothing would have happened.
Thank you very much, Esa. This would be the last word. Thank you to all speakers today. Please give them a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you to you, dear audience. You've been very patient to stay with us the whole afternoon. Thank you also to those who joined online. Please help disseminate our reports. They're available online. Please share the news on social media. Our next Pin Flash will cover the topic of the safety of senior people. Again, very linked to the driving license discussion. Please check the ETSC website. And have a nice evening, and please stay safe. Thank you.
Can I just mention one thing? I think you had the question this early afternoon about safe infrastructure. And exactly, so the call is being relaunched. So work will soon start. Voilà.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Super. Oh yes, I forgot. I want to thank Maria and Jenny, the source of the PIN program. Without you, nothing would have been possible. Thank you very much.